independent research institutions that are here. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our guest of honor. Thank you very much, Prof, for making yourself available. All the esteemed guests, representatives of heads of institutions, and also colleagues from the centers that we've been dealing with, ladies and gentlemen, and also to borrow a statement from Norma, I would say all protocols observed. But maybe I would also greet you by saying habari, maramse, saubona, sanbonan, bonjour, bondian, all the language that I'm thinking of. Thank you very much for attending this ceremony. It is very important, but also I'd like to thank all the colleagues and also the team from UKZN who have worked tirelessly to make sure that this event takes place. My brief is just to give you a bit of a background about the African Institute in Indigenous Knowledge Systems, as Ms. Norma has explained. And I think for the colleagues in the various centers, we have been working together right from the start, so you know the history. But I think for the benefit of the vice chancellors and other participants of this event who might not be aware of what transpired, I'll just be very brief. Some of you may be wondering why AIIKS, and I think if you allow me, if you go back to what has been happening in the world now, the COVID-19 pandemic, on one hand, we are very sad that it has caused a lot of havoc in our lives. But on the other hand, I think, especially for the African continent, it has brought to the fore the fact that actually we can have solutions to problems that are besetting us and these problems that are locally based. And you can see how various countries have responded to the pandemic and in a very successful way. And this has also given us an impetus to say, why can't we seriously look at our own solution? If I also go to the example of Rwanda, where they managed to apply homegrown solutions and overcome the problems that occurred in the country as a result of the genocide against the Tutsi. So we do have solutions in Africa. We do have knowledge systems that we can apply to overcome our problems, but we just need that kick to be able to move forward and the confidence to say our knowledge systems can participate in the global knowledge economy in its own right. So that was the essence of why we thought of AIIKS. And so the need to build and strengthen Africa IKS, so that indigenous knowledge, so that it can contribute to the global pool of knowledge. What strategy do we use in terms of the process? I think what we did, we used our networks to consult widely with colleagues in the different countries of Africa. And as you can see from the institutions that are going to sign this MoU, there's a spread of countries from East Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa, West and West Africa. We are also getting inquiries from institutions in the diaspora as well as North Africa. And I believe in due time, they're also going to join. So we did extensive consultations. And what we realized was that in many countries, in many of the institutions, there is work going on in terms of IKS. What is needed is to have some coordination and also have a lot of strength, because if you pull together, we are able to overcome or to able to promote IKS in a manner that is much better than what was happening before. I always liken the fight or the struggle to restore the dignity and also the recognition of IKS to what our countries went through when they were fighting for political independence. The only difference now is that we are fighting for independence in terms of knowledge. And I think it had to be done in a concerted effort and a coordinated effort. So that was the message which we sent to our colleagues. And I'm glad that they saw the need for such an effort and they all came on board. And also we thought there was no need to have all of us or all the institutions under one roof. We could work together around common agendas in a virtual institution, and that's why we adopted the hub and the nodes model, so that you have a hub, but you can have nodes in the different countries which will be working together around a common agenda. Norma has mentioned the UNESCO 2 category, which is very important because if we get that category, and I'm sure we're going to get it, it will enhance the image and the impact of the Institute. Therefore, in terms of what we'll be doing, we will be able to achieve much, much better than if we are, for example, working as a single institution in one country as what is happening now. So as a process, we developed the concept note, which we shared with colleagues widely, and it was supported. And then in the concept note, we also developed what we call the objectives. We identified a number of focus areas. We also identified a number of themes around which the action plan of the Institute will be able to be implemented. And then from that action, we agreed that we needed an enabling framework. The MoU that is going to be signed today is an indication of how our commitment is. And the reason we have heads of institutions, many of the vice chancellors, actually all of the vice chancellors, that received a letter from the UKZN vice chancellor. And the reason is this: apart from the independent research institutes, or what, like the one in Ivory Coast, Professor Kone can testify to that, and also from Senegal. We do have other research units that are linked to Professor Sheikh from Senegal. We do have other institutions that are linked to universities. So it was very important to make sure that they had the mandate of the heads of the institution to participate in this initiative. It's for this reason that the Vice Chancellor of the University of KwaZulu-Natal wrote to the Vice Chancellor of the participating institutions requesting them to confirm the mandate they gave to those units to participate. And I'm very thankful to the Vice Chancellors who responded. And it's for this reason that we have this MoU. And you can see on the MoU, I've got 16 institutions that are going to sign. We got expressions of interest from 20. The other 4 are still in the process of formalizing the acceptance. And once they do, they appear on the MoU. But these 16, if you like, are the first to go off the block. And I thank you very, very much. Now, in terms of the structure, we have a governance board, which is comprising of very eminent people who have been invited by the Vice Chancellor to serve on them, and I also thank them. Some of them are participating in this program, who have agreed to serve on that body. There's also the Executive Management Council, which is going to comprise of the heads of the current institutions. And then we are going also to have a scientific council. So this is the structure in terms of how the institution is going to work. The next steps after this, the MoU, as Ms. Norma has indicated, is a very critical enabling framework, which is going to enable us to move forward. The next step is the approval of the institute by the Council of the University of KwaZulu-Natal. The reason it's going to be by the Council of the University of KwaZulu-Natal is because UKZN is going to be the host of the hub of the institute. And then after the approval, we start processing the UNESCO Category 2 status, but at the same time, the Institute is going to continue its programs. We have an action plan, a 3-action plan, which is going to be implemented by the Executive Council after discussions, and the other programs that are actually going on. So I think with these brief notes, I'm happy to answer questions. If you contact me by email, I can provide any clarity. But I think also for the Vice Chancellors and heads of institutions, if you talk to the members of your research units that are part of the institution, of this institution, you can get a more detailed briefing of how we started and where we are going. Other than that, I would like to thank everybody who is taking part in this function, And once again, we'd like to thank Ms. Norma and our staff, Professor Kaya at the CIKS and his staff for the support and also for the energy they put into this initiative, which I think is very important for the advancement of the agenda of AU 2063, which is really to put African indigenous knowledge systems together with other knowledge systems and participate in their own right, because we have a lot to offer. So thank you very much, Norma, for this opportunity. I hope I've been able to provide some background which will enable the signing of the MoU to go very smoothly, if at all there were any doubts before this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof, for enlightening us. I think all of us here now have a better understanding why we're here and why we are going through this process. I just forgot to mention that for those who need translation, there is a button at the bottom there. You can click there and choose the language that you wish to be translated in. And also that if you need to make any comments, as the Professor Ijumba mentioned, you can do it via email, or you can also write comments on the comment or chat button at the bottom there. So now to proceed with our program, I am pleased to invite Professor Nhlanhla Mkhize, who is the Deputy Vice Chancellor and Head of College of Humanities, to welcome us or to deliver his welcome remarks on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, and who unfortunately couldn't make it today. Thank you, Professor Mkhize.
Thank you very much, Program Director, and greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Professor Eddie Maloka, Chief Executive Officer of the African Peer Review Mechanism and former Special Advisor to the Minister of International Relations. Professor Etienne Ehile, Secretary General, Association of African Universities. Professor John Tesha, Executive Secretary, Forum for the Former African Heads of State and Government. Ms. Mambei Chaba, Chief Director, Multilateral Cooperation in Africa, Department of Science and Innovation, South Africa. Professor Iona Seleti, Chief Director, Science Missions, Department of Science and Innovation, South Africa. Vice Chancellors and Heads of African Higher Education Institutions participating in the consortium. Professor Musa Mushabela, Acting Deputy Vice Chancellor, Research of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and Professor Ijumba, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. On behalf of the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of KwaZulu-Natal, Professor Nana Bogu, I am both honored and delighted to welcome you to this important occasion. Today's event brings together heads of African higher education institutions and African experts from across disciplines, institutions, and countries as a consortium to promote the development of indigenous knowledge systems, in short, AIIKS, as part of a transformative and paradigm shift in the sustainable development of Africa from within the continent. Today marks the virtual signing of the African Institute for Indigenous Knowledge Systems Consortium Memorandum of Understanding by heads of African higher education institutions which is one of the major landmarks of the Center in Indigenous Knowledge Systems, KIKS, its developmental journey to status of excellence in IKS as a knowledge domain in its own right. UKZN is the hub of the Department of Science and Innovation National Research Foundation's Center in Indigenous Knowledge Systems, which is in partnership of 5 higher education institutions. As a hub, UKZN partners with UNISA, Northwest University, University of Limpopo, and University of Venda in this project. It therefore goes without saying that we are honored to be part of a pioneering occasion. The participation of diverse stakeholders from both public and private sectors within and outside Africa provides the AIIKS with opportunities to create locally relevant and globally competitive partnerships for simultaneous contribution to the global knowledge economy and sustainable development on the continent from African indigenous perspectives. The AIIKS will develop and drive strategies for the systematization of African indigenous knowledge systems as a knowledge domain in its own merit. This is part of the implementation of the aspirations of the AU Agenda 2063, which speaks of the Africa we want, to enable Africa to contribute to the global pool of knowledge on its own terms rather than those dictated by others. In this regard, the mandate of the African Indigenous Knowledge Systems Center would be to promote African indigenous worldviews, ways of knowing, and value systems within Africa and globally. Much work has gone into bringing this important occasion into fruition. In this regard, please allow me to express my gratitude to all stakeholders who have brought us to this point. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Kabazela, for those welcoming remarks. And I would like to now move on to call Professor Mosa Mashapela, who is our acting DVC Research and Innovation, to introduce our guest of honor, Professor A.D. Maloka. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Noma, and greetings, colleagues. Let me extend my gratitude to Kabazela. Thank you for the warm welcome. And also to all the heads of institutions here, vice chancellors, deputy vice chancellors, and other executives and directors of different other research institutions present. I'm also very honored and grateful to be part of this signing. I have the pleasure of introducing our guest of honor, Professor A.D. Maloka. And when I spoke to him, asking him how he would like me to introduce him, he said preferably as anonymous. I don't know how to introduce him anonymously, but I will do my best and to introduce him that way. So he is anonymously the Chief Executive Officer of the African Peer Review Mechanism. He likes to work in the background, provide support to those who have to make difficult decisions and be accountable to larger parts of our society. He is a scholar as well. in the sense that he's affiliated with the University of Witwatersrand as an adjunct professor. But also he's been to other institutions before, including the University of Cape Town, where he worked as a lecturer. So again, true to his habit of working anonymously, he works in the background most of the time. He is an advisor to a number of key principals in the political sphere. He was previously the advisor to the Minister for International Relations and Cooperation. And he is also advised the premiers, heads of our provinces in Mpumalanga and in Gauteng. And he continues to play an important role in providing guidance when it comes to political science and in the political sphere. So he did not want me to go any further in introducing him, and I'm hoping that in welcoming him here, he will introduce himself and the institutions that he represents as he offers us his speech. Thank you so much, Prof. It's a real pleasure to have you join us and to speak on this important event. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Professor Mashabela. Thank you very much for you could say, very generous introduction, and I thank you for all your kind words. And I also wish to recognize our program director, our dear sister, the executive director, and then of course our host on behalf of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Mkhize, who's our Deputy Vice Chancellor, and of course stand on the protocol that he and the program director established that recognizes all the distinguished professors, friends, heads of institutions, vice chancellors, deputy vice chancellors who are here. He mentioned some of them, and I don't have the exhaustive list, Professor Etienne Hele, and then my dear friend, Professor John Tesha, and of course, my long lost friend, Professor Jonas Seleti. And then of course, I saw that when we're doing the technical preparations, I saw the heads of institutions who will be participating in the signing ceremony today. And I saw that our executive, the program director was insisting that they must show the signature must appear on the screen, because I'm sure they so that there's legal evidence for in case there's some dispute that indeed you did sign. So I look forward to being part of this ceremony. Unfortunately, I'm not privileged enough to be one of those who will be attaching my signature to this important document. But nonetheless, I wish to recognize them and recognize the leadership of the center, the institute that has been put together. Of course, Professor Ijumba has just made a very comprehensive introduction. And my dear friend who is associated with the center, also Professor Kaya Hassan, I know him for many years. Let me start, of course, by expressing my gratitude to UKZN, to its leadership, and of course to our dear friends who are hosting us today from the institute that has put all of us together, for associating me with this important event. I know, I must say that I'm a very, I've been familiar with AIIKS, but not as an expert. And my introduction to AIIKS, I can say, my dear friend, Professor Kaya, was partly responsible. And I also wish to pay tribute also to my dear sister, she's not here, who introduced me to AIIKS and was a real serious champion of AIIKS when very few of us did so, herself, Professor Kaya. And at this time, I want to mention Dr. Dora Hoppers. I know him, but I don't know where she is now. I wish her well wherever she is. And to say that it's them who introduced me I thank them for introducing me to AIIKS. And indeed, they prepared me to be part of this important event. And I know how important this initiative is to colleagues who spoke before me and to those who have initiated. I know that the realization of this MoU today is their dream, and indeed a mission that they've been pursuing in their life. And congratulations to all your excellencies and friends. And with today's ceremony for the signing of the consortium MoU by the heads of this participating African higher education institutions, we take a big step in our AIIKS continental initiative. We establish an AIIKS consortium of African higher education institutions in the form of the Africa Institute in Indigenous Knowledge System, with the University of KwaZulu-Natal as the hub. I commend the 16 research centers and universities from our regions in East Africa, Central and Southern Africa, and West Africa that have agreed to join the network constituting this institute. This network takes into account, and I must commend the organizers, it takes into account the linguistic diversity of our continent. Of course, we define ourselves linguistically in terms of the inherited colonial languages, but in the AIIKS sector, I'm sure you are much more critical of colonial languages. But where I work, you can't start a meeting if one language group is not represented. The African Union uses 5 languages: French, English, Portuguese, Arab, and then Kiswahili. So I see when I saw even institutions from Mozambique, I was very, very impressed, because sometimes we tend to isolate our colleagues in the so-called Lusophone region. And I say Lusophone, and I know I'm in company that may find this use of this language unacceptable, but I apologize if that's the case. And then I do hope that as the consortium grows, I believe it will expand to the central and the northern region of our continent. There are institutions in Chad. In fact, some of in Chad, you know, that is they call themselves the country of Tunami. Tumani, it's one of the oldest skulls found on the human skulls found on our continent. They've got excellent institutions there. And I used to be associated with the University of Yaoundé in Cameroon. So they have quite established university establishment. And then, of course, the humanities campus for the Pan-African University is based in Yaoundé. So we're hoping that you could reach out to Central Africa, to the university community there, to associate them with it. And of course, North Africans, they are very well established higher education establishment there. And you know that the Alexandria, historically in the ancient period, they have one of the best universities there, which was penned by the Romans. So you reaching out to that part of the continent is also going to be important for this network to really have a full continental reach. The consortium we are launching today will build on the indigenous in driving our own development processes based on our own worldviews, ways of knowing, value systems, including indigenous languages and homegrown philosophies, as an authentic expression of ourselves and identity as Africans. This initiative is based on the willingness of our African experts across disciplines, institutions, and countries to use their education and research expertise, working with local community language holders and practitioners to implement, indeed, the aspirations that are contained in the Africa We Want Agenda, African Union Agenda 2063. Given the history of the marginalization of African indigenous knowledge systems in the global knowledge economy, this institute initiative, in the form of a consortium of African higher education and research institutions, creates an opportunity for the African leadership, public and private sectors, to provide the necessary for the development of AIIKS. AIIKS is an initiative that is to spearhead Africa's efforts of restoring its dignity through knowledge, valuing and promoting its knowledge systems for sustainable development. The AIIKS initiative is part of the implementation of the Agenda 2063, and as it enables Africa to contribute to the global pool of knowledge on its terms rather than those dictated on us by others. COVID-19 and the survival of many African countries in this pandemic, compared to other world regions, highlights the value of AIIKS, especially its holistic homegrown health solutions and value systems of solidarity, compassion, and respect for humanity, the famous Ubuntu, in mitigating global challenges. Friends, excellencies, professors, one of the best treatments for COVID-19, you'll be familiar yourself, Prof, is the well-known herb which made its international news headlines thanks to the Republic of Madagascar. You know, the president of Madagascar was fighting that everybody must drink this treatment at the beginning of the outbreak of COVID. We all know this herb. It goes by many names. Here in Southern Africa, we call it, in my home language, we call it Lingana, others call it Mhlonyane. In the scientific world, it's called Artemisia. Common names for various species in the genus include mugwort, wormwood, and sagebrush. I understand the genus was erected by a Swedish botanist, Carl Nias, who's in some standard scientific literature is referred to as the father of modern taxonomy in the middle of the 18th century. The name Artemisis derives from the ancient Greek goddess Artemis, who is the goddess of the hunt, the wilderness, wild animals, and the moon. And of course, the equivalent of this goddess in the Roman pantheon is goddess Diana. The point I want to make, Your Excellencies, is that for the past 500 years or so, since Christopher Columbus ventured into the Americas and Vasco da Gama rounded what is now Cape Town in search of a route to India, humanity has been living in an era of dominated by white-skinned people of Western European origin. They conquered the world and subjugated all of us to their domination. As for us Africans, they traded us as slaves. Later, they colonized our lands. To this day, they remain our masters. Like empires before them, they understood that the conquest of lands and human bodies goes hand in hand with the conquest of the human mind. They erected a knowledge empire that places Europeans and Europe at the center of the universe, a knowledge system that attributes to Europe even things that were invented by others, including even Christianity itself. It's a Middle East religion. This is the knowledge system of the Greek logos. Logos, you know, everything is logos, logos. And the Latin language naming regime. Our universities themselves, including UKZN, are constituted of academic departments. All or most of them are constructed according to this Greek word logos. And each one of them has some ancient Greek male on some Greek island as an originator of that line of, like, for example, me, I'm a historian by training. I'm told that the first historian was Herodotus, and I know it's factually not true. You go to medicine, they tell you that the father of medicine is Hippocrates. It's also not true. We are drilled to memorize Latin words and phrases and recite them by heart, especially our learned friends in the legal field, to sound educated, sophisticated, and indeed civilized. Artemisia could not escape appropriation by this Eurocentric empire of knowledge. A herb that grows wild in my backyard, that has been used for centuries by our ancestors to treat flu, carries a Greek name in the world of scientific taxonomy. A few things about the knowledge base of our time are worth mentioning. First, it's Eurocentric. It's universalizing Europe's particular experience. Secondly, many of its foundation facts, inverted commas, are actually pure lies, mainly the exaggeration and distortion of the contribution of ancient Greece and the European Enlightenment to our human body of knowledge. Thirdly, it marginalizes non-European contributions to knowledge and human civilizations, contributions dating back to the ancient period in Africa, in parts of the Middle East, like the so-called, like the ancient Mesopotamia, in India, Asia, and pre-Columbus Americas, and so forth. And the fact that how the Islamic world civilized Europe and helped Europe find its path out of the Dark Age to the Enlightenment. It's not taught anywhere in our history books that the colonization of the southern part of Europe by the so-called Moors, the Islamic civilizers who came from North Africa, who colonized and occupied parts of largely Spain for about 400 years before Columbus and all of that. They are the ones who brought the scientific knowledge into the, and actually in one way or another, their influence led to the European Enlightenment period. This knowledge system, this knowledge empire also marginalizes women. It hardly refers to women. Even in the ancient University of Alexandria, there were women, female professors there, some of them of Greek origin who were teaching and mentioned, but they hardly mentioned, they are even hardly mentioned. There's one school of thought that looks at the, you know, in geometry, we are taught about, in geometry, we are told that the father of geometry, of course, is the Greek Euclid. And then we are taught about triangles, and all of these were well established 2,000 years before it even became effective. Because the Greeks, the ancient Egyptians, to construct the pyramids, like Imhotep, who was one of the ancient scholars during the early period of the ancient Egyptian kingdoms, he is the one who used to design some of the early pyramids. To design the pyramids, you needed to know and master geometry. So that's like 2,000 BC, and then the Etude and all of them, they are in the 500s, maybe in the 7th, 6th century or so, BC. And he's taught in our schools as the father of geometry, and we are taught, it's called Euclidean geometry, that's how it's called. There is a literature that suggests that actually, because I haven't read myself, I haven't read the Elements, his book, but there is literature that suggests that, in fact, the book itself does not acknowledge, it does not talk of a historical figure called Euclid itself. But then this mathematician is Afro-American, is African-American mathematician. He's got a very interesting book. I think the title of the book is Euclid and Jesus. He suggests that actually the author of what is in the Elements, a book attributed to Euclid, was written by a female mathematician called Apatia, who used to be one of the professors lecturing at the University of Alexandria. So there are these women figures who contributed to knowledge, who are not acknowledged, and they are black and white across the board, whose contribution to knowledge is not acknowledged. And then finally, the current architecture, knowledge architecture and power relations ensure and reproduce Eurocentrism and domination of white-skinned people of the Western European descent. I emphasize Western European descent because they themselves in Western Europe, when they talk about themselves as white people, they exclude the East and Central European. They don't see the Russians as full whites, and they see them as half of deformed or mini whites or some. So they have constructed this knowledge system. All of us are being taught about it, and everything originated from ancient Greeks, and we are being schooled in our schooling system everywhere across disciplines. This is what we was, even myself as a historian, I was socializing to believing that the first historians, even I studied philosophy, I studied the Iona school, pre-Socratic philosophers, and Socrates himself, Plato, Aristotle, and then of course you move into Europe, you study Hume, you study all this Kant, and you go on and so on. All of them European males. You know, and these are the people of recent period compared to the entirety of human civilization. Friends, I'm not an expert on AIIKS, but I see this initiative that we are launching today as an opportunity to attack and demolish the nerve center of the knowledge empire of our time. My exposure to AIIKS and its initiatives is embarrassingly very limited, I must confess. But the very little I know and the few AIIKS cases I'm familiar with, my humble impression is that we tend to position AIIKS as an exotic intellectual enterprise focused on traditional mysteries and secrets of extinct cultures or of the natives of the tropics or some place that is exotic. We focus on traditional medicinal practices and products or on how the natives live or continue to live in harmony with their environment as opposed to our age of climate change and environmental degradation. And I think this is good. But the AIIKS technologies we produce or propose don't impact society in the same way that Uber, Facebook, and other similar technologies have done. Their impact is marginal or insignificant, to say the least. They have no transformational impact on our society. If you go to the AIIKS stores where you look for traditional herbs and all those kind, you have to visit some isolated exotic stores. You can't find them in the main stores and so on. So the AIIKS community is a minority. It's small. It's small. It's for experts. It's for, I'm not involved in the AIIKS community, even myself. And I take herbs because of COVID, but I have to go and look for this Artemisia. I have to go and look. Now I'm planting it even in my yard. I sometimes wish that our level of ambition in how and where we could deploy our AIIKS arsenal could have two objectives in mind. One is that its prime target should be the center of the knowledge base of our time. If me, I had a vice chancellor, if me, I had means, I had a small business and I had a university like you, it's only the vice chancellor on top of you. If you are there close to power, I will really set up a commission to rewrite the entire history of science, the entire history of this, all of these things that have been taught in our university, especially the foundation, first year, second year, and all of that. It's pure Eurocentric lies. Pure Eurocentric lies that we, even in mathematics, it's pure Eurocentric lies that Pythagoras did not discover that theorem attributed to him. It was long established. He actually spent over 20 years trained by the Egyptians in the universities of Thebes. That is 2,000 years earlier and so on. That was in existence 2,000 years earlier, even before his birth. So all these lies are being taught in our schools. So if we really need an offensive against this establishment as African people and working together with other regions to really rewrite the history of the world, what is taught in our own universities. We can't change calling anthropology because it's both Greek, anthropos and logos. But it's just not it, that the Greeks, they founded knowledge, they invented knowledge and all of this so recently, just about less than 3,000 years ago. And then the second level of ambition is that the technologies, the IKS technologies we develop should have transformational impact on our society and humanity at large, comparable to what the train did to us, to what the computer did to human civilization, and of course to what today we talk of the fourth industrial revolution. I'm very critical of the so-called fourth industrial revolution. But our level of ambition when we develop this technology should not be things that are going to be used by a specialized group, some sect of scholars and so on. It should be something that really are going to transform our societies and change how we look at things. The way computers have done, cell phones and all those kinds. The level of ambition, that's really what I'm challenging our IKS community to think about. I also believe that our approach to IKS, it should be universal, and we should have a universal appreciation of IKS. We should be able to balance Afrocentricity with the universalism of knowledge. Because in as much as these knowledge bodies that have been produced by indigenous African, through indigenous Africa, the Chinese did the same, the Incas, the Indians, the zero itself comes from the Indians. The Europeans in the Middle Age could not count, they used to start from zero, and thanks to the Indians, they discovered zero, and they were now, their numbers now, the computation now used to, and then it could not balance. So the Indians came up with these, the Chinese invented a lot of things. We invented a lot of things, ancient Egyptians, the Incas, they brought, we eating tomato, we eating beans, we eating potato. All these things, they come from the pre-Columbian American civilization. So what I'm trying to say is that to balance Afrocentricity in the IKS approach with the universalism of knowledge, because knowledge is a human endeavor and humanity is one, but the Europeans have put in our minds that is Eurocentric, is European, and you can't think of knowledge in its universality. You can only think of knowledge in terms of skin color and themselves as superior. But knowledge is universal. Me, Zulu, I can think of something, somebody in the US can, and gradually it comes together, it improves, then it has a global impact and improves how humanity improves. So the issue that I think, and it's an issue that I take with our IKS and a lot of literature that was written even by Sheikh Anta Diop, did a lot of work on the Afrocentricity, Afrocentric knowledge systems and so on, but sometimes it doesn't have a universal dimension. We make the same mistake that Europeans did. We overemphasize and exaggerate the over-centrality. I think of the Afrocentricity, we have to balance Afrocentricity with the universalism of knowledge, because humanity is one and human beings are one, and Homo sapiens all originate from Africa, and they are all African people, and they just changing color, complexion, height, and so on, as they migrated out of the continent about 200,000 years ago in different waves, or less, maybe less actually. The last wave was actually in the 10,000 years, 15,000 years ago, those who went into the Americas. I wish to emphasize to the heads of institutions, they need to ensure that the institutionalization of IKS takes place in the respective core business areas of their institutions. The IKS, I'm aware that the Institute is developing the IKS roadmap to guide the institutionalization of IKS research, teaching, learning, communication, marketing, and resource mobilization, including IKS policy development in the partner higher education and research institutions. It is our hope, dear colleagues, that we would like them to, that these roadmaps, these participating institutions, take into account this roadmap and have it implemented to keep the momentum of this continental initiative. To conclude, friends, I wish to take this opportunity to pledge our support to this initiative as the APRM, to really the institute that today we are inaugurating. We are ready to work with you and also to give you the support and where we can to assist you in the mobilization of African leaders and continental organizations, both private and public sectors, to actively support the aspiration and initiatives of AIIKS, the institute we're establishing today. Once again, congratulations to the institute, to the consortium, to professors who are leading this exercise, to partner institution, of course, to our university and my dear friend who are very generous in introducing me, and indeed to our dear sister, the executive, the program director. I wish this initiative great success, and thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prof, for those encouraging remarks. Thank you for reminding us of our history and the importance of our indigenous knowledge contribution to AIIKS. So I think the only downside of these virtual events is that there is no clapping of hands, but I guess it's the thought that counts. So maybe
for myself. For myself.
Yes, so I mean, if you were in a room, I think that would have actually, I would have actually requested people to actually give you a round of applause. So thank you so much. I think the leaders of the institutions, they had your message, and also the emphasis on to ensuring that AIIKS becomes the core business of our institution. So that means including teaching and learning, research, and all other activities of the institutions. Thank you so much for that. So moving forward, ladies and gentlemen, you will agree with me that to embark on these kinds of projects, you need the blessings of your key stakeholders. So I'll now then invite Professor Etienne Ehile, who's the Secretary General of the Association of African Universities, to deliver his message of support. And then after that, it will then be followed by Ms. Mampe Chaba, who is the Chief Director, Multilateral Cooperation in Africa from the Department of Science and Innovation. So without wasting any more time, I'll invite those colleagues to actually deliver their message of support. Thank you so much for that. Is Prof. Ehile, are you able to join us? Ms. Chaba? Shakila?
Yes, ma'am, I am here. I can.
Oh, okay. You know, sometimes you actually get, I thought maybe I was frozen. I couldn't hear anybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Program Director, Ms. Norma Zondo from the University of KZN, Professor Nelson Ijumba, the coordinator of the African Institute of Indigenous Knowledge Systems Initiative, heads of institutions from the 16 African countries that are going to be part of this initiative today, Professor Eddie Maluka, our distinguished keynote speaker of the day, my colleague, Professor Yona Sileti, distinguished professors, researchers, and participants that have joined us this morning. It is indeed a pleasure and an honor for the DSI to be part of these great initiatives. And congratulations are in order for all of the 16 institutions that will sign the MoU today. Today is an occasion, not just for the Indigenous Knowledge Institute, but as a whole. As you might know, today marks the end of an era. South Africa's chairship of the African Union ends today. And what better way to celebrate the end of our chairmanship than through the recognition of the African Institute of Indigenous Knowledge as an institution in its own right that recognizes IKS as a research domain for Africa's own development. For the DSI, the 20 or 16 research institutions that are signing the MoU are strategic partners for driving the continent's development forward. They also happen to be the 16 countries that South Africa has got active STI agreements with. And we pledge that through those agreements and partnerships with ministries of science, technology, and innovation in these countries, we will provide the adequate political and other financial support that is required for the institutions to thrive. DSI's IKS policy was adopted by Cabinet in 2004. That's almost 16 years ago, thus laying the foundation and the first milestone recognizing, affirming, developing, and promoting IKS in South Africa. This has been an instrumental milestone, not just for South Africa, but for SADC and the continent as a whole, as IKS is now a driving domain towards Africa's own development and affirming Africa's cultural values in the face of globalization. From the DSI, Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation and Higher Education, Minister Blade Nzimande, and our executives, they would really like to continue supporting the institutions that are signing the MoU today. The DSI is indeed proud to be associated with this initiative, and through the various programs within the DSI, Technology Innovation, the International Resources and Cooperation Division, the National Institute of IKS Office, NICSO, we pledge our support to support the process towards categorization of this institute as a UNESCO Category 2 institute. We will do whatever it takes, whether it's political or otherwise, within our control, within the constrained resources, to support the success of this institute. And with that, I'd like to once again congratulate you all for reaching this important milestone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Chaba, for those kind words. We're going to be moving on. I am told that Professor Ehile is not here yet, so I think we'll just move on. Ladies,
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry about that. That's Siri, so always jump into conversation that are not, yeah, so sorry about that. Ladies and gentlemen, now the moment we all been waiting for, the actual signing of the consortium memorandum of understanding is here. It is my great honor and privilege to invite all the heads of institutions who are going to be signing the MoU to get ready for the signatures. Shakila and Mayeshri, can you assist to signal once everybody is ready so that we can start the signing ceremony?
Madam Moderator, good morning.
Professor Mumba?
Good morning.
Yes, Madam Moderator. My apologies for joining the meeting late. I've just been guided by our coordinator from the University of Zambia, Dr. James Nyirenda, that as a matter of fact, we already endorsed the MoU, the consortium agreement. So I'm not too sure whether I'll just be observing or I'll have to do some kind of symbolic signing. I need
Professor
to be
Mumba?
guided.
Professor Mumba, it is a symbolic signing. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. We'd like to invite all signatories to please put on your camera and so that we are able to witness. Please, can we confirm that all cameras for all signatories are on? Professor Pemba, camera is on, thank you. Professor John Akama, I hope the proper camera is on. I know you have 2 representatives today.
Yes, my camera is on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, Program Director, we are ready to proceed. We can invite all the colleagues to sign when you are ready, Program Director.
Okay, thank you, Mayeshri. Am I also on the screen, and can you see my document?
I can't see your document, Norma.
Oh, I thought we figured it out how to put this thing. Now?
No.
I think we can still proceed, and then we can pick up the document thereafter.
Okay, I'd like to invite everyone at this moment to sign the document in front of you, the memorandum of understanding that you'll all be signing. And you sign where your name is indicated. Okay, can we do this now? Thank you.
Shakila, is it possible to have all signatories on the screen at the same time, or IT, please, to assist? That we have all signatories on the screen at the same time?
We have 12 on screen at the moment.
So are we missing 2? Okay, we can proceed with the people that are on the screen.
Professor Insa Kone, please, your camera.
So while you're signing, the photograph will be taken. I hope that is, please indicate once that is done, Mayeshri.
Right, I think all signatories have signed. If we can ask for either direct your camera to the document or to raise the document in front of you so that we can have a group photo, similar to what Program Director is indicating. Norma, you can bring it closer towards your chest, Norma, so that you don't remove. All right.
Please
Screenshot,
don't
please.
block your face. Do not block your face.
Bring the document closer towards your body so that we are able to see your image.
Professor Kone, I can't see, there's no picture.
All right. You know, there was a challenge with the camera, Shakila, so we will proceed. All right. I think we are successful.
Perfect.
Oh, okay.
All right. Can we have a joint applause, please? I know the audio is off.
You can hear mine?
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, we can move to vote.
Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you for signing the memorandum of understanding. So, which it was the main reason we're here. So, thank you so much for that. I'll now hand over to Professor Iona Saletti to give us a vote of thanks. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good morning. Bon dia.
Good morning, Professor Saletti.
Good to see you, Professor Mumba. And,
thank you.
How do we? All right, I can see. I'll just, yes. I need to congratulate all of you, people that are in the room and those that are on the internet and the people that are signing and everyone that is on the program for this historic occasion. This is a milestone at a continental level in terms of the significance of recovering our past and reshaping it to be part of the transformation of the future that we want. So I want to, as I give this vote of thanks, be inclusive, begin by inclusive and thanking everyone present today as being part of the people that are going to write that history, that the history will no longer be written by the hunter, but we shall write our own history as a people. So we recognize you, celebrate you, and wish you well. In my giving of this vote of thanks, I want to indicate right from the beginning that I'm using the spirit of Ubuntu as a framework to anchor my salutations and thanksgiving to all that have participated. So let me begin with the list of the prominent people that are in the room. And as my colleagues have been saying, that all protocol, but I don't think that I should do that because I need to recognize each and every one of you for the contribution. So I will begin with the governing board, with Professor Musa Mashabela, Mr. Nathan Sazman from the NRF, Professor John Tesha, who has been around, Professor Ed Maloka, Professor Osmond Mwendemele from Namibia, and also Professor Golan Muhammad Bedwai, and the former Excellence, Dr. Speciosa Wandira Kazibe, who has been very supportive of the work all the way from Uganda, Mr. Jacob More from Abuja, Nigeria, Honorable Fanele Makangara, member of the CCM Central Committee. So we appreciate all this effort. Honorable Professor Anna Tibajuka, Professor Celestio Obuyo, and Mr. Eugene Mason III, Professor Lesiva Tefo has been part of this movement, and Dr. Jimmy Adisa, and our two colleagues who have given the messages of support. We appreciate you. We thank you for being supported. Stay the course. Continue to be supportive. We need you going into the future. But in terms of just the protocols of today, I also want to thank the two vice chancellors of the university, of the two deputy vice chancellors, but also begin with the vice chancellor for his foresight in allowing Professors Kaya and Ijumba space to champion the establishment of the African Institute of Indigenous Knowledge at the university. And while focusing at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, I also want to joyfully note the spirit of support contributed by the two professors, the deputy vice chancellors, Professor Nonhlanhla Mkhize who has also been in the trenches with us, pushing AIIKS, and Professor Musa Mashabela. So the spirit of support must continue as part of Ubuntu from you to make this a success within the university. Professors Kaya and Professors Nation Ijumba, we thank you for allowing us to have hope and optimism through the sharing of such a clear concept and the realization of this day. We urge you to not only embrace the spirit of hope and optimism, but to have the spirit of endurance and perseverance, because the task that you have started, the battle that you are engaged in, is a huge battle of colossal dimension. So keep that endurance and courage. I also want to express a special thanks for Professor Ed Maloka, who has unpacked the mechanisms, global mechanisms of domination from the West, and more specifically, one civilization to another. You have been true to your core as a historian and a political economist, and we thank you for your erudite speech that you have given us this morning. We will take the pillars of that and make them part of the building of the future. For Ms. Mampe Chaba, my colleague, we thank you for your pledge of the Department of Science and Innovation in supporting this. You are critical in the international arena to assist us to open the doors of international institutions for this institute to be a well-established and institution. Now I want to turn to the 16 institutions, heads of institutions that have also signed this. You have demonstrated courage. You have also demonstrated your foresight in choosing part of the champions of this pathway, which is not a common pathway, but a unique pathway. In so doing, you have shown leadership, and we thank you for, and we urge you to stay the course, determined, so that as we chart the uncharted territory, you will emerge victorious and champions. We are building a community. A community is about family. And all of you, the 16 that have subscribed to this MoU today, are members of this family. This spirit of Ubuntu, which is about people and dignity, must embrace our cooperation as we move forward within the establishment of these institutions. We will eventually get the UNESCO, and your contribution is important. As I pay tribute to you all for this historical event, which we have witnessed, I think it is important for us to push this spirit of trust. Ubuntu thrives on the spirit of trust. It does not thrive on the spirit of control.
Prof, sorry to disturb you. Can you adjust your camera so that we can see you? I think you had it right at the beginning, but then we can't see you at all. Can you just adjust it so we can?
All right. Let me see.
Yes, okay. That's much better.
All right, that's fine. And I'm going towards the end. I also want to, as I go towards the end and that I speak about the spirit of trust as part of Ubuntu, I think it is very important that we establish a community of trust built on the principles of Ubuntu. That we demonstrate the spirit of commitment to one another as the spirit of Ubuntu demonstrates. Mutu, kimutu, kabatu. Umuntu because of other people. It is also very important for us to have a sense of community, and this spirit of community in Ubuntu is important. And it is in this context that I want to express our support as well for the colleagues in the CIKS, colleagues at the corporate services, Norma and her team, for a wonderful job that you have done in making this event happen in the manner in which it has happened. Congratulations to you all. And as we move forward, let's embrace this spirit of Ubuntu and be characterized as we go forward as a people that have built a knowledge enterprise that is excellent. Africans also thrive on excellence, without which they wouldn't have survived up to this time. So well done, and thank you to all, and keep the battle going. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Professor, for those kind words, and also for thanking all our participants and also the people that were part of the program, and also people who also work behind the scenes to actually make sure that this day is a success. So colleagues, I think we have come to the end of our program. I see there is a hand up. I'm not sure if Prof, there's something that you want to mention before we close the session. And I also want to advise people that the recording of this process will be available on our YouTube channel after the ceremony, or after we actually have managed to clean it up a bit. So you'll get to actually view the proceedings from the beginning to the start. And also we were broadcasting live on YouTube, and I'm sure a lot of people were able to participate or were able to be part of this historic moment. So is anything else that I've left out? Prof. Ijumba, Prof. Kaya? I think we've come to the end of our program.
Yeah, thank you, Norma. You have not left anything out. I think, short of repeating myself and what Professor Jonas Sereta said, you deserve our special thanks, you and your team, for putting this event together. Again, I would like to thank everybody, the vice chancellors, the representatives, heads of institutions, and my colleagues who we've been communicating since the beginning of this event. Thank you very much for making this happen. And as Professor Jonas Sereti says, I think the hard work begins now, so let's stay together as we pull through this next stage, which is even more difficult, but I'm sure we are going to overcome, and at the end of it all, we reach the ultimate impact of what is meant for AIIKS if you look at the theory of change. Thank you very much, and all stay blessed and have a nice weekend. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. Thanks once again to everyone. Stay safe and make sure that you continue to follow COVID-19 protocols so that we meet again